Uttamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udire Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurudinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam. So the 21st chapter is titled Conversation between Swambhavu Manu and Kardama Muni. And the general flow of the chapter is that it begins with Vidur inquiring about the lineage of Manu. And interestingly, Maitreya, in describing the lineage of Manu, begins to speak about Kardama Muni. And the reason, of course, as we'll see, is because Kardama Muni will be married to one of the daughters of Manu. And Maitreya also knows that Vidur is interested in hearing more about the glories of Lord Kapila, who will appear as the son of Devahuti and Kardam. So we see Kardam Muni performing austerities for a long time to get a suitable wife, followed by prayers. Once the Lord appears, he recites wonderful prayers. Then the benedictions by the Lord. And then the chapter concludes with the entry of Swambhavu Manu into the ashram of Kardama Muni. So really speaking, there isn't much conversation, just the last few verses are the conversation between the two, but this is setting the stage for the conversation. So we had done at the first 5 verses, and we will resume from 321, 6. Maitreya Vacha Prajasrajayeti Bhagavan Kardamo Brahmanoditaha Saraswatyam Tapastepe Saharshanam Samadasa. The great sage Maitreya replied, commanded by Lord Brahma to beget children in the world, the worshipful Kardama Muni practiced penance on the bank of the river Saraswati for a period of 10,000 years. So this is Maitreya's first verse in response to the question of Vidur about the lineage of Swambhavu Manu. And in 7 verses, from 6 to 12, he will describe Kardam's, specifically Kardam's darshan of the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that one thing to note over here is the duration of the penance performed by Kardama Muni. He says he performed for 10,000 years. Vishwamitra performed for 60,000 years. So by this we can understand that the process of yoga takes a very, very long time to attain perfection. And because this was in the age of Satyug, people had a long life. They lived for 100,000 years. But Prabhupada says that in this age of Kali, not possible. So he re-emphasizes Kalau Nastev, Nastev, Nastev. That there is no other alternative, no other alternative, no other alternative than chanting the holy name of the Lord. So as I mentioned earlier, Kardam literally it means, the word Kardam means shadow. And he got the name because he appeared from the shadow of Lord Brahma. This is mentioned in 3:12:27. Verse 7. Tatha samadhiyuktena kriya yogena kardamaha sampraped harim bhaktya prapanna varda shusham. During that period of penance, the sage Kardam, by worshipping through devotional service and trance, propitiated the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those who flee to him for protection. So Prabhupada says that the word Samprapede Harim means that Kardam Muni, he propitiated the Lord through various ways. So it means that he was not only performing meditation, which is in the more advanced stage, that is the primary anga of Astanga Yoga, Samadhi or Dhyan. So these are basically essentially sitting and meditating. But Prabhupada says that Maitreya is also using the word Kriya Yogena. So Kriya means activity, and Yogena means in connection with the Lord. So while he was obviously performing yoga, he was also performing devotional service to please the Lord, which is Shravana, Kirtana, Smaran, different kind of activities that he was doing. So essentially, he was performing Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Verse 8. Tavad prasanno bhagavan pushkaraksha krite yuge darshayama shatam kshata shabdam brahma dadahad vapuhu. Then in the Satyug, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardam Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. The 2 points significant in this verse. The first is the explicit mention of Satyug, Krita Yuga. So the point that is made is that this kind of meditation is only suitable for Satyug. Same point Prabhupada is re-emphasizing so that we understand that the Yuga Dharma for this age is not meditation. So Prabhupada very harshly condemns these so-called meditators because this age, the duration of our life, the purity of our consciousness, the presence of authorized gurus, they are all lacking. If you were to do Astanga Yoga. So he's making this point over and over again that Kardam Muni, he did 10,000 years of Astanga Yoga in Satyug, which was again embedded into Bhakti. So the point that is made here also is that the Lord was satisfied with him. So he showed his form. So Prabhupada says that this clearly means that even those who are performing yoga are hankering after the form of the Lord. So, which is understood through the Veda, Shabda Brahman. So this is not a form that is imagined by the meditators. Sometimes people say that think there is dark nothingness, or think there is a light. So I remember when I was younger, I used to go to a place in Delhi where they would teach meditation, and basically they would have you sit in a dark room with other people, and they would basically ask you to try and meditate on something. So the highest meditation, they would say, when people who are practiced, they could meditate on nothing. But in the earlier stages, they would say that think that there is a light, establish a certain color to the light, and then meditate on it, or think that it is pulsing and then meditate on it. So these are all just imaginary forms. It's not Shabda Brahman. It's not validated through the Vedas. It is not the result of the overactive imagination of the meditator. But what Kardama Muni saw was a form that belongs to the Lord's form, and that is substantiated in the Vedas. Verse 9. Satam virijam arkabham sita padmo palasrijam snigdha nilalak vrata vaktrabjam virajom brahmam. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free of material contamination, in his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. The Lord was clad in a spotless yellow silk, and his lotus face was fringed with slick, dark locks of curly hair. So the point that is made here is that the Lord appeared in his eternal form. So there's a description of the form of the Lord, but the point is that he came in his eternal form. So the form belonged to the Lord. It was not a form that belonged to Kardama Muni. He did not meditate on a form and approached the Lord in that form. So the point that it was without material contamination means that it had no aspect of any speculation from Kardama Muni. It's not that he thought out of his material mind that may there be a form like this. So it was without any material contamination and in the Lord's own form, his eternal form. Verse 10. Kiritinam kundalinam shankachakra gadadharam svetotpal kridankam manasparsha smitekshanam. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in 3 of his hands, and a white lily in the 4th. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees. So one can understand that Kardama Muni was meditating on Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu came in the 4-armed form. So in 3 of his arms, he held Shankha Chakra Gada. And generally, he holds a lotus in the 4th. Here it is described that he was holding a white water lily. And Vishwanath Chakravarti says that in conjunction with the later part of the verse, that he was happy in a smiling mood, it indicates that he was holding the white lily for amusement. And he was reciprocating to the natural love of Kardam for him, which is why he was in a happy and smiling mood. And the form of the Lord is described as one that captivates the heart of his devotees. So, Mana Sparsha. So, Srila Prabhupada translates Mana as heart. That the form is one that touches the heart of the devotee. Smita Ikshanam. That he was rendering smiling glances to him. So you can just see the Lord being very happy in the association of his devotee, playful and happy. Okay. Verse 11. Vinayas charanam bhujam amshadeshe garutmataha drishtva ke vasistham vaksha shriyam kastu bakandaram. A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kastub gem suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garud. So Prabhupada says that the description in the last 3 verses, 9, 10, and 11, one can understand that this is Shabda Brahman. This is the authoritative Vedic versions. And they were not imaginations of Kardama Muni. He also makes the point that one should not make this mistake of because it's described that he had a jewel and he had a golden streak and he had curly hair. So these are all things that we see around us. So looking at that, one should not make this mistake that there is anything material about the Lord. But the fact is, and this we had discussed earlier, that these descriptions are given to us so that within the conception that we have, we can get a sense of the beauty of the Lord. Because he's spiritual, he's beyond matter, he's beyond words. So these verses, they convey a sense. And Prabhupada says that even impersonalists like Shankaracharya, they accept this fact that there is nothing about the Lord that is material. The Lord has nothing to do with the material creation. So everything to do with the Lord, his body, form, dress, instructions, words, they are all spiritual. And everything that he speaks is authoritative. Prabhupada said they are all confirmed in the Vedic literature. Jiva Goswami mentions a slightly technical point over here. So here it is mentioned that the Lord was standing in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garud. So Jiva Goswami says that the Garud mentioned over here is not the son of Kashyap and Vinita, since Vinita had yet to be born. So actually, one of the sisters of Devahuti, which is Prashuti, will later on marry Prajapati Daksh. And their daughter is Vinita, who would be given in marriage to Kashyap. And then Garud would be born. So just like the Lord has a presence in Golok Vrindavan, in Vaikuntha, and also he comes down to the material world. His devotees also have similar expansions. So Garuda is Sridama in the spiritual world, and he exists eternally in the Vaikuntha as Garud, and then he also descends into the material world as the son of Kashyap and Venati. Okay, verse 12. Jatah shopatan murna kshitau labda manoratah girbistva abhayangrat priti swabhavatma kritanjalihi. When Karda Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. So the point is again made that Karda Muni was a great yogi, but he's feeling great satisfaction in perceiving the personal form of the Lord. And sometimes it is said that the yogis, because of performance of austerities for thousands and thousands of years, their heart becomes very hard. They are quick to curse, they are inflexible, just because they perform so much austerity and lived for such a long time in isolation. But we don't see that in Karda Muni. So even though he was a yogi, but the point that is made here is that from his symptoms we can understand that his yoga was performed as an anga of bhakti. So we see that his heart was naturally full of love of God. So Astanga Yoga is a means to an end. It's not necessary that everybody performing Astanga Yoga is meditating on the impersonal Brahman or the localized Paramatma. Astanga Yoga essentially frees the mind and allows one to be able to focus without any material contaminations or interruptions. Now, what the person focuses on depends on the propensity of the person. There are some who will focus on the Brahman, there are some who will focus on the super soul. But Karda Muni, he was focusing on the personality of Godhead. And because that is what he had attraction to, the Lord personally came and revealed his personal form to Karda Muni. Verse 13. Rishirvacha Justam Batadhyakhila Satvarashe Samsiddhyamakshnosh Tavadarshananaha Yadarshanam Janambhir Idyasadbhira Ashasate Yogino Rudhayogaha. The great sage Kardam said, O supreme worshipful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existence. Through many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form. So in 10 verses, from this verse 13 till verse 22, we will see the prayers of Kardama Muni to Lord Vishnu. So we see that Kardama Muni had been performing austerities for 10,000 years. But here he is clearly saying that the Lord has come entirely due to his own mercy. And the ability of him to see is simply his good fortune. So good fortune means that that's something that happens without your effort. Ahituki. So he's not laying claim that after this long austerities I've earned the right to see you. So he's genuinely surprised. So the word bata means that exclaimed in surprise that the Lord had shown such uncommon mercy on him. So one might say, well, you did perform austerities for 10,000 years. So he says that that's nothing. So and that's when he says that there are yogis, advanced yogis, who not for 10,000 years, but for 10,000 lifetimes. He says many successive births of deep meditation. The advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form, which means they may or may not be able to see it. So you see, I've done nothing. So definitely, this is not because of any of my endeavor. So acknowledging the mercy of the Lord, Kardam states that the perfection of eyes is to see the form of the Lord. So Prabhupada says that Kardam Muni admits that seeing the Lord personally in Bhakti Yoga is the perfection of sight. And those who are actually on the advanced path aspire only to see the eternal form of the Lord. Okay. Next verse, 40. Ye maya ye te hatamedha sastva. Sorry, different meter. Ye maya ye, sorry, ye maya ya te hatamedha sastva padarvindam bhavasandupotam upasate kam lavayatesham rasi shakaman niraye piyeshu. Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nescience. Only persons deprived of the intelligence by the spell of the deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasure of the senses, which even persons rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them. So here Kardam Muni, he's condemning the mentality of those people who approach the Lord with material desires, which he says are available to those rotting in hell. So one may question that if Kardam Muni knows that those who approach the Lord with material desires are foolish, then certainly Krishna also knows. And Krishna, he also understands that what they are asking is Kam Lavaya. Kam Lavaya means transient pleasure. So then why does he still award them? So Kardam Muni answers that implicit question. He says, only because of your Rasi. Rasi means mercy. So even though they are bewildered, they will still recognize the mercy of the Lord because of these benedictions and then develop Preeti for him. Because the other alternative is that if the Lord did not reciprocate to those who had material desires, they would never take to bhakti. So this is the whole process of gradual purification. Go through the Karma Kand section of the Vedas, perform yagyas for material desires, understand that Bhoktaram Jagatapasama, Sarvalok Maheshwaram, understand that ultimately Krishna is the benefactor of all the yogas. And then from Karma Kand, move to Karma Yoga of dedicating your work to Krishna, and then gradually move to Bhakti. But if that Karma Kand was not there, then people would never be able to start on this path of engagement with Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad, he makes an interesting point in his explanation to the verse. He says that there is a rule that karma leads to heaven or hell. But the enjoyment given by Krishna does not generate any reactions, does not generate karma. So those desires do not lead to heaven or hell. Those desires meaning those desires with which the materialistic devotees are approaching Krishna. Because Krishna is reciprocating from them, and whatever Krishna gives is free of karma, even though it may look material. So it is not going to result in material bondage. So the point he's making is, even if you have material desires, go to Krishna. Because when Krishna fulfills the material desires, they're not going to bind you. Like when the devas fulfill your material desires, then in enjoying those desires, you will get inevitably bound by the law of karma. The definition of karma is that which gives you a material body. But when you approach Krishna for material desires, and if he reciprocates, then what you get is Krishna karma, which is not materially binding. So in the perfected stage, the devotees, they simply work for Krishna. So that is the perfect definition of akarma. Now in the neophyte stage, there is a predominance of my own desires. So you don't work for Krishna, you work for yourself, depending on where you are on the path of devotion. So they had in this one of those Gita Nagari retreats, there was this Rampal Maharaj uses analogy that you have two pockets, one pocket for Krishna, one pocket for yourself. So this is for Krishna, this is for myself. This desire is for Krishna, this desire is for myself. But as one approaches Krishna with these mixed desires, Krishna is famous for fulfilling the desires and at the same time purifying them. So he fulfills the material desires, which according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, does not result in any material reactions. But he also purifies the desires for them, which means that these desires now are no longer centered around yourself, but now centered around Krishna and his devotees. So the more Krishna comes into the picture, the weaker the hold of karma becomes. So that is why it is said, akama sarva kamova moksha kamodardi. I think this verse will be quoted 3 times by Prabhupada and subsequent purports, because it's captures the essence of what Karna Muni is praying. akama, sarvakama, mokshakam udardi. The sarvakam, they're full of desires. Mokshakam, desiring liberation. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purushe para. But when approaches Krishna, tivrena bhakti yogena. So this is why when we see in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, we see there are 4 kinds of Mishra Bhaktas. Artho Jigyasu, Jnani, Artho Artharthi, Jigyasu, and Jnani. So they're all Mishra Bhaktas. But yet Krishna, he says that they're all magnanimous souls. In 7:18, he says they're all magnanimous souls. Why? Because they've embarked on this path of approaching Krishna with the Kama Sarvakama. They're approaching Krishna with everything, and the process of purification has begun. Now, in contrast to this, those who are simply engrossed in sense gratification are condemned, because they have no hopes of progress. There's no Krishna there. The Prabhupada says that such persons are described as Hatamedasha. So it's translated as those whose brains are spoiled. So because they lack the finer intelligence, they are basically going to continue to live like Prabhupada said, cats or dogs or hogs, and enjoy material happiness from sex life and sense gratification. So when we wonder that why does Krishna allow them to suffer like this? And Prabhupada says because of Bhagavad Gita 4:11. Yatha mam prapadyante tam sate bhajamyam. That because they turn away from Krishna, Krishna turns away from them. And for those who turn towards Krishna, Krishna turns towards them. Okay, I'll do one more verse and then we can stop for any discussion. Tatha sachaham pravyodukama samanashilam grame dadhenum upayevan moolam asheshamulam durashayakam duganagripasya. Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desire tree. So it's interesting that in the previous verses, the theme that Karna Muni is developing is that one should approach Krishna without material desires. So that's the high water mark, he said. And then he said that whether you have material or spiritual desires, approach Krishna. So when he says therefore, it is in conjunction. Tatha, he says similarly, it is in conjunction with the second part of the theme. He says that Krishna, you're kind. That even those who approach you with material desires, you reciprocate, you fulfill their material desires, you purify them, and you help them make spiritual advancements. So therefore, I'm approaching you with the desire to marry a girl. So Prabhupada says that in spite of his condemning persons who approach the Lord for material advantages, Karna Muni expresses his material inability and desire before the Lord by saying, although I know that nothing material should be asked from you, I nevertheless desire to marry a girl of like disposition. So enlightened as he is, he's fully aware of his situation. So he says, Durashaya. So Asha means hopes. Durasha means with evil aspiration. So he said, that's what I have. I'm Durashya. I have evil aspiration. And he refers to his wife as, or the wife that he aspires to have, he says Dhenu. So Dhenu is, he says, it translates to cow, to indicate that because a cow marries a bull, to indicate that he is a bull with the intelligence of a bull. So here is not referring to bull, the representative of dharma, but the fact that bull tends to be very obstinate. Bulls are famous. That's why even in English they say that he has a bullish mentality. That once they hold on to something, they will hold on to it. So he's saying that I am that bull that is holding on to my material desires. And he says, Moolam Ashesha Moolam. So he glorifies the lotus feet of Lord as Moolam. And he says Ashesha Moolam, that I'm approaching a lotus feet, which is the source of everything. But Ashesha Moolam means that all that I'm asking from you is this silly desire of getting married. So the obvious question over here is that why is Karda Muni, who is obviously enlightened, obviously an exalted soul, he has personal darshan of Krishna, why is he understanding the futilities of material benediction and still asking for them? And the answer will be revealed later on. That is just sort of humility. So he is asking for a wife in order to execute the order of his father. So Brahma had given this order to Karda Muni as a Prajapati to marry and have children. And Brahma has received that order from Krishna. So this is Karda Muni's way of serving his guru and father, Brahma, and the Lord, in whichever way they desire to serve him. So he's an exalted devotee. And he says that if this is how I need to serve you, this is how I will serve you. By entering into the so-called material samsara. Then Prabhupada also explains that he's aware of his adhikar. That Karda Muni recognizes that he still has material desires. And rather than suppressing them, he is, so what does he say? Upiyavan Moolam Ashesha Moolam. That I'm taking shelter of the Lord to simultaneously satisfy these desires, to render my service, and then become purified. So this is the basis of bhakti, that everything is done simultaneously and expeditiously. That one acts on the material desires because they have still contamination, but goes to Krishna. And one tries to fulfill the material desires in a way that they're also serving the will of the Lord. So Karda Muni has the desires to marry and have children. But now he is dovetailing it to the instructions of Guru and Krishna. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Kardam could have asked this benediction of a beautiful wife from Uma Devi. So generally, it is understood that When one wants a beautiful wife, they worship Parvati Devi, and there are many in the Vedas. There are many processes that are given. And Karda Muni is obviously aware of it, but he does not. He worships the Lord because that is his desire as a pure devotee, and that is the recommendation in the scriptures also. So he also uses the term Graha Medha Dehunam. So Graha Medha Dehunam implies that he's looking for a wife to partner with him in Dharma, Arth, and Kam. So he's not simply looking for somebody to procreate with, but essentially to execute the Purusharthas as given in the scriptures. So Prabhupada uses this opportunity to educate us on the proper considerations for marriage. He makes 4 points in the purport. He says that like disposition is very important. That boys and girls of similar disposition should be married. That the similar nature of the boy and girl, when they are united, will go a long way in ensuring a happy married life. The second point he makes is that one should consult the horoscope of the boy and girl to see whether they would be compatible from the psychological perspective. So like disposition is mostly means that similar family background, similar status, similar dispositions. And the horoscopes are the more subtle aspect of it. Then the third point he makes is that physical attraction should not be the sole determining factor. So 2 points are made over here. One, he accepts the fact that it is one of the determining factors. So there has to be some kind of physical attraction, but then it should not be the exclusive factor. And here he's of course referring to the fact that in the current day and age, physical attraction is the predominant factor based on which marriages are consummated. And that should not be so. And the fourth point that he makes, which is more of a glorification. So he says that in astrology, a man is considered fortunate who has great wealth, very good sons, or a very good wife. Of these three, one who has a very good wife is considered the most fortunate. So Prabhupada says that to emphasize that, and it applies both ways. Even though Prabhupada is saying good wife, but it equally applies to good husband. And the point that he's making is that if one is fortunate to have a good wife, is considered most fortunate compared to having great wealth or even great progeny. Sometimes people say that you're fortunate to have great progeny, but good progeny is actually a function of the husband and wife creating a conducive environment for the progeny to be nourished in. Okay, I'll take a pause over here and see if there is any comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Just here Kardama Muni performed tapasya for 10,000 years, and in the next verse it says Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, is a quick bestower of the blessings. So how to put these two things together and understand that, this apparently contradicting statements?
It's an interesting point. Actually, Narayani Mataji, when she is giving a lecture on this, she talks about this point, saying that Karda Muni had a lifespan of 100,000 years. So 10,000 years is a tenth of his lifetime, right? So for us, it's like doing something for 10 years. And if you compare that with what he got out of it, is kind of spending $1 to buy a lottery ticket and getting $100 million in return for that. So one can say, yeah, I did spend $1, and it was my hard-earned dollar that I spent, but it's insignificant compared to what was obtained in return for that. So Karda Muni himself acknowledges that what I have done is nothing compared to what others do. That not 10,000 years, but probably 10,000 lifetimes. So that's why he glorifies the Lord as a quick bestower of mercy.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you very much. I also have a comment, if I can share that, or somebody else is there.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You have the mic.
Like Kardama Muni, I'm not that elevated as Kardama Muni, not even close. But we do know that there is transcendental realm where we can get completely liberated from the material bondage and go into a completely liberated state where we can totally be free of all these by performing devotional service. Yet we pray for material benediction from Krishna. So it's not just Karma Muni, but we are very much in that. At least I can speak for myself in that mode. And so I was thinking, when you were talking about Karma Muni asking for this benediction, although he is a realized, enlightened personality. So yeah, I was just thinking about reflecting on that, my own situation also. I thought I would share that.
Thank you, Prabhu. And actually, that's why these verses are there, because Karda Muni is Karda Muni. But what he's speaking is something that we can relate to. So these are all preaching verses. They're coming in the form of the realization of a great devotee, but they're essentially preaching verses. The fact that whether you have material desires or not, go to the Lord is kind, he reciprocates, he purifies your material desires, helps you make spiritual advancement. And the fact that Karda Muni had personal audience of the Lord means that he's already liberated. So what he's saying and what he's doing is all a service to the Lord. So the fact that he's asking for a wife is a service to the Lord. The fact that he's condemning himself is a service to the Lord, because through that he is revealing to us our own mentality. So yes, I agree with you that it does hold a mirror to ourselves also, that we also have these desires. It also shows us the path, that just because we have these desires doesn't mean that we should turn away from Krishna. It means that we should take those desires and go towards Krishna, and like Karda Muni did, wherever possible, use it in the service of Krishna. So thank you for the realization, Prabhu.
Nice, Prabhu. Thank you very much for your input.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Just 2 points of clarification. I was taking some notes while you were speaking, and I just like you to clarify this. You were mentioning that for those who approach Krishna with material desires, Krishna fulfills those desires, he purifies. There were 4 points you made. I don't know if I if I got it correct, if you can just repeat that.
So this is based on the realizations of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and I'm trying to pull up that because you said there are 4 points. I want to make sure I'm able to remember the 4 points. Well, I'm not able to remember the 4 points because I have a Kali mind. But give me 1 minute.
I remember clearly you said Krishna purifies, Krishna fulfills. I'm just not so clear, but I thought it was very interesting, so I just wanted to just keep it as a note.
So this is based on the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti on verse 14 of this chapter. So the premise that he lays is that when you go to Krishna with material desires, and if he fulfills them, there's no karma that is attached to it. So they are not binding like other kinds of desires. The second point that is made is that when you go to Krishna, he will give you what you need and not what you want. So you go to him with a particular desire, and he will fulfill it in a certain way that it fulfills your need. So I may want $1 million, but what I actually need is mental well-being. I earn a little bit and I'm happy. Krishna will reciprocate that. Third point that was made is that while Krishna is fulfilling the desires, he is also purifying them.
Okay.
So as one approaches Krishna for desires, Krishna reciprocates. But material desires have the nature of self-perpetuating themselves. But when Krishna fulfills the desire, he actually takes the desires away. Or more appropriately, he purifies them, means that the desires are now anchored towards Krishna. And then the final point that is made is, which is kind of like a summary of the point, that because of all this, as one goes more and more towards Krishna with all your desires, the hold of karma becomes weaker and weaker, and one's progress in one's spiritual life becomes stronger and stronger. Kind of a summation.
I was making that as a note also. The more Krishna comes in the picture, the weaker the hold of material life. Well, just repeat that line. The more Krishna comes into the picture, the weaker the hold of material life becomes.
Close enough. Yes, that's what I was saying. Close enough.
If I can share, Prabhu, this is a very good experience. I have vivid experience of this particular statement that you're making. That I pray to Krishna for some out of some desire, and he fulfills. Later on, when he fulfills, then I am experiencing in such a way that why did I ask for this? I didn't know the intricacies of the whatever that comes on my way. I am thinking in one way and asking for the benediction, and what Krishna gives in such a way that there are hidden things which we were never aware of while asking for that particular benediction, and that is purifying. That shows why am I asking all these things to Krishna, rather than simply asking for engaging in your service. Rather than that is that is the safest prayer that I've noticed so far. Anything else is so, it's not very safe. When I ask for my own desire, and when Krishna fulfills the desire, then the realization comes, oh, this is not what I really wanted. So anyway, this I thought I would share.
Thank you, Prabhu. Are you okay, Paramatma Prabhu? Did you get what you were looking for?
Yeah, yes, very interesting. I thought very nice philosophical points, but also very good preaching points. And I like to take notes, as you were speaking.
Yeah, you're right. They're very practical points, and that's why Prabhupada emphasizes on it. He uses this verse, Akama Savrakama Vimoksha Kama Udade, 3 times in this chapter, because in his purport, because I think that's the essence of the prayers of Kardam Muni, that whether you have material desires, whether you have non-material desires or you desire liberation, in all cases go to Krishna. That's the summation of these prayers of Kardam Muni, with of course a lot of humility there. Okay, so let's move on. Any other comments? Okay, if not, we'll move on to verse 16. Prajapate Vachasadhashatantya Lokakilayam Kamahatanabdaha Aham Chalokan Guto Vahami Balim Chasuklanimashyatubhyam. O my Lord, you are the master and leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you who are eternal time. So this verse is a more direct answer to the implicit question that could have been raised in the previous verses that we had raised, that if Kardam Muni is condemning those that ask for material benedictions from Krishna, why is he himself asking for material benediction? So here he says that I'm bound by a rope. So what's the rope that he is bound by? The rope that he is bound by is the instruction given to him by his guru and father Brahma, which in turn is coming from the Lord. So great Prajapatis like Kardam and Marish and Daksha, they're all bound by the ropes of instructions of Brahma. That's what makes them great. That they accept authority. They accept the instructions of the authority as their very life. And why Kardam says that, why am I giving so much importance to Brahma's instruction? Because he says he is your servant. He says because he is your servant. Because Brahma is only aspiring to fulfill your desires. The Prabhupada says that this is explained in Bhagavad Gita 3:10. That in the beginning of creation, the Lord sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifice of Vishnu and blessed them by saying, be thou happy with this yajna. So that's what is happening here. That Brahma and Kardam, they were sent by the Lord along with yajna, sacrifice. Now for him, sacrifice is entering a grihastha ashram and having progeny. But that is what is the wish of the Lord, that is the wish of Brahma. So Krishna might say that, my dear Kardam, there are also personalities like the four Kumaras and Narad Muni who have refused to follow the instructions because they have seen the higher truth, the one that you are showing. So why don't you follow their footsteps? So Kardam responds to this implicit question by saying that that's not my adhikar. So he's saying my intelligence is not like theirs. He says, I'm like a bull. I'm bound by a rope and carry an offering to you. So what am I aspiring to do? To follow your orders to the extent that I'm qualified to follow. So we see Kardam, he's masterful in displaying the mood of a practicing devotee. That the practicing devotee is fully aware of his own adhikar. What is the level of purification? 16 rounds, 64 rounds. Become like Haridas Thakur. So one might say that Prabhupada said, chant as much as you can, so I'll chant all day. And there was a devotee, I think in Gita Nagari, who basically came and he would just chant all day, like Haridas Thakur. And Prabhupada's other disciples, they told him, oh, this person has come, he's chanting all day. Prabhupada just laughed and said, wait and see. And then in 2 weeks, he was gone, never to be seen again. Why? Because he wasn't acting according to his adhikar. It isn't that the process of chanting was not working on him, but he did not have the necessary purification for Nirjan Bhajan. You have to be qualified. Your mind has to be steady. Your heart has to be pure. So that's what Kardam is saying. He's again using the analogy of I'm bound by rope. So same point, like a bull is bound by a rope and can only go as far as the rope allows. Then I'm bound by the rope of the instructions of Brahma. I'm also bound by the rope of my desires. So he's accepting his position of asking material benedictions for a wife from Krishna. And then he glorifies Krishna as Animeshaya Tubhyam. That, O form of time. So where does Krishna appear as time? In the material world. So this form of Krishna is unique to the material world that gives and takes. So Kardam Muni is understanding that what I'm asking from you will be taken away from you because your time, for people like me who are asking for material benedictions, your time. So, and it happens. He gets the wife and in his case, not taken away. He gives up himself, but he gives up his wife. So that's a function of time. Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that Kardam Muni addresses the Lord as Shuka, which is the leader of religion. So the point that Prabhupada is making over here is that even if you're approaching Krishna for material desires, it should be according to the scriptures. So one should follow the Vedic regulations and surrender unto the Supreme Lord, because that is the ultimate goal of perfection. One should live a life of piety, follow the religious rules and regulations, marry and live peacefully for elevation to the higher status of spiritual realization. So this is Prabhupada's recommendation for people like us who still have material desires. So he says, live a life of piety. Piety is material piety, which means don't do sinful activities. Follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures. When he says marry and live peacefully, don't do ugra karma. And at the same time, aspire to elevate your spiritual realization. So we see here 5 points that are displayed by Kardam in the mood of practicing devotee. So first he says, Vahami Balim Animishaya, that I'm offering my oblations to eternal time. So this is his acceptance of the fact that all activities that are not directly pleasing to Krishna will perpetuate the cycle of birth and death. So these are points that are important for us, because we see Kardam Muni's mood that just because he is doing something does not mean that he is trying to justify it or is accepting it as an end to all. Many times we'll see people, they'll argue very hard to justify whatever they're doing, whether it's right or wrong. Just because they're doing it, they will justify it. So there is no creative tension over there. If a person does not feel regret, then there's no creative tension. The person can never improve their situation. So we see that creative tension in Kardam Muni. That firstly he is accepting that whatever I'm asking for will bind me materially. Second point, that he's acknowledging and accepting his adhikar. Yes, I have material desires. Even the desire to follow the instruction of the guru could be construed as material. Because the example was given that Vishwanath Chakravarti says that follow the footsteps of 4 Kumars, follow the footsteps of Narad. They were not punished by Krishna. They became glorious. You will also become glorious. Kardam says, but actually, I have the desire to have a wife. I have the desire to follow the instructions of my guru and father. So he strives to act according to his adhikar. Second very important point. Third is that while acknowledging that he has material desires, he's striving to fulfill them religiously. So just having material desires is not a check to be irreligious. That either I'm in Krishna consciousness or I'm sinful. It doesn't have to be like that. So he wants to have a wife, but he wants to marry according to the injunctions in the scriptures. The fourth point is that while he's doing this, while he's fulfilling his material desires as per the instructions of the Vedas, he is continuing to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. He is not going to Parvati Devi or Lord Shiv or anybody else, but he is using this as another way to take further shelter of the Lord, removing one thorn with another. So there is one thorn, that is material desires, and the other thorn is fulfilling the material desires. But by making sure that he's going to Krishna to fulfill their desires, he is actually purifying himself of the material desire to begin with. This point we discussed. And the fifth point is that he understands the ultimate goal. So in the earlier part of the verse, he clearly said that the goal is to take complete shelter of the Lord. The goal is to only aspire to serve the Lord and his devotees. The goal is to become free of all material desires. So by condemning those who approach the Lord with material desires, he is implicitly indicating that what should be the proper conduct. That the ultimate goal is that one should become completely free of material desires and only serve the Lord and his devotees. So this is a nice, succinct summary of how practicing devotees can aspire to follow the footsteps of Kardamuni. Okay. Verse 17. Lokam sa lokanuga tan pashumscha hitva sristaste charanatapatram parasparam tvad gunavadasedhu piyusha niryapita deha dharmaha. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. So the question that may be asked over here is that if Kardamuni is glorifying giving up everything material, then what is it that they are left with? What is the happiness that they experience? So to address that, Kardamuni speaks two verses in which he will glorify the devotees in comparison to the materialists. So the way Kardamuni is approaching this is that because I am approaching the Lord with material desires does not mean that I should justify it. So this is the two wrongs do not make a right. So in his mind, he's thinking the first wrong is that I'm approaching the Lord with material desires. The second wrong would be that I try and justify it. So he's correcting, or he's not really correcting because he never did that wrong, but he's making sure that the second wrong is not committed. So here he describes bhakti. So he says that those who hanker after material pleasures or speculative knowledge, he says they are pashums. Pashums means animals. And the reason he compares them to animals is because they are simply aspiring for that which is also available in the animal form of life. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, all this is available in the animal form of life. Because they're aspiring for that, he says they're pashums, they're animals. They're not engaging in that which is only available in the human form of life, which is spiritual advancement. So this statement is Kardamuni's condemnation of material attachment. Now he says that on the other hand, those who take shelter of the Lord, they experience unlimited happiness by Shravan and Kirtan. This is the glories of spiritual attachment. So one may say that if they have no material attachment, then how do they survive? And Prabhupada explains that those who act in terms of Vedic injunctions to enjoy material life, but those, I'm sorry, so let me rephrase that. So Prabhupada is saying that when one has material desires, then one has to act in accordance to the Vedic injunction to be able to enjoy material life. Otherwise, it will be a sinful life, which is poison. And then Prabhupada says that those who have taken to devotional service of the Lord, they don't have to worry about all that, because they have taken shelter of the Lord. So which means that when you take shelter of the Lord, all your needs, material or spiritual, are immediately satisfied. So interestingly, in the purport of this verse, Prabhupada equates this taking shelter of the Lord to taking shelter of the spiritual master. And he uses the famous Samsara Dhava prayers by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur to explain this. He says that just like the material existence is a raging forest fire, and only by taking shelter of the Guru one gets protection from it. The same point that Kardamuni is making. Kardamuni is making in the context of taking shelter of the Lord, and Srila Prabhupada is explaining that our way of taking shelter of the Lord is taking shelter of the spiritual master. Okay, verse 18. Nate jaraksha Brahmirayu Esha Trayado Sharam Tri Shatam Shasti Parva Shanemyananta Chadiyatri Nabhi Karal Shroto Jagadachityo Dhava. Your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cuts short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. So the previous verse was talking about the fact that the devotees of the Lord are protected. They don't have to strive separately for their material well-being. Where are they going to get food from, shelter? Who will protect them from the lions in the jungle? They don't have to worry about it separately. This verse is talking about that, forget about them not needing protection. They are glorious because those who are materially engrossed are constantly being cut down by time. So this verse is a more eloquent description of time. So he says that it has 3 naves. So the 3 naves are the 3 period of 4 months, the 3 Chaturmasya, which become 12 months, which is an year. Then 13 spokes. So 13 spokes are the 13 months. Now, generally it has 12 months, but this year, as you know, we had a 13th month. So according to Vedic astronomical calculation, the year is considered to have 13 months, the 13th month being the Purushottam Mas or the Adhik Mas or the Mal Mas. And as I explained earlier, this is essentially to align the lunar calendar to the solar calendar, because the lunar calendar, the lunar month is 29.5 days. So it's 354 days a year, and the solar calendar is 365. So there's 11 days of slippage. So after every 3 years, and not actually 3 years, little less than, after every 32.5 months, actually, the Adhik Mas appears. So that's the 13 spokes. Then the wheel has 6 rims. So these are the 6 seasons, or the 6 ritus. Then 360 joins. So these are the days and nights of the year. And then he says it has unlimited edges. So these are the unlimited seconds. And then the axle of the wheel is Brahman actually. So essentially making the point that all this is happening because of the energy of the Lord. Lord is manifesting as time. And then the rotation of the wheel is causing the movement of time, which is annihilating everything. And then Kardam says not everything. Na Ayuresham. There is an exception, that it is not affecting the life of the Lord's devotees. So then what does that mean? That the devotees of the Lord do not die? So the point is made is that the devotees may die, but the devotion never dies. And since the devotees live in the devotion, they never die. So this is a glorification of the eternality of bhakti. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he quotes 4 verses to substantiate this point, that anything that is spiritual is eternal. That's essentially the point that is being made, that anything that is spiritual is not subject to the destruction of time. Anything that is spiritual is eternal. So he quotes from Bhagavad Gita 240, famous verse, Neha Vikramanashasti Pratvayona Vidyate. So little execution or devotional service saves one from the greatest danger. Then he quotes 4.9 Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam Yome Veti Tatvata. That one who understands the nature of the appearance and disappearance, he does not die. It goes back to him. Then Prabhupada says that it is stated in the Vedic literature, Harim Vina Na Mritam Taranti. Without the mercy of the Lord, one cannot stop the cycle of birth and death. So this is actually, Prabhupada uses that more than once. This quote, Harim Vina Na Mritam Taranti. So this is actually appears in a verse in Bhavartha Deepika, which is Srila Sridhar Swami's commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. So there he writes, it's an interesting verse, but I'll read the translation, that you may perform mountains of austerities, visit many holy places, study all the Vedas, and perform all kinds of Vedic sacrifices. But, and this is where the Harim Vina Neva Mritam Taranti comes, but without devotion to Krishna, none of these things can save you from death. So Prabhupada quotes a part of the verse, Harim Vina Neva Mritim Taranti. And the fourth verse he quotes is from Bhagavatam 2.3.17, Ayur Harati Vaipumsam. That as the sun rises and sets, it takes away the life of all living entities. But it cannot take away the life of those who are engaged in devotional service. It's spoken by Sukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. Oh, I'm actually over time. My apologies, I lost track of time. So I'll pause here and see if there is any comments. Okay, if not, then we'll stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhayashchit kripa sindhu vyevata patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hai Gaur Premanand. Hari. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hari Bol.